Undo and history. Undo and history. Undo and history by using the undo redo commands. By using the undo redo commands and the history panel, you can easily control the state of your images and use the undo or redo commands beginning with the October 2018 release of Photoshop CC 20.0 version, and you can undo multiple steps in your Photoshop document using Ctrl Z in Windows Command and Ctrl Z if you use macOS. And this new multiple undo mode is enabled by default, by the way. To perform undo or redo operation, do the following. Undo moves one steps. Undo is meaning moves one step back in the undo chain, and you can choose edit, then undo, or use the keyboard shortcut, then Ctrl Z if you use Windows and Ctrl Z and Command Z if you use Mac OS. Okay, so what about the redo? Redo is moves one step forward. Redo is moves one step forward, and you can choose edit, then redo, or use the keyboard. Use the keyboard shortcut Shift Control plus Z plus Control Z if you use Windows, and Shift Command Control Z if you use Mac OS. And the edit menu also displays the name of the step that will be undone next to the undo and redo commands. And for example, edit, then press undo edit type. And how do you switch? How do you switch back to the legacy undo shortcuts? How do you switch back to the legacy undo shortcuts? If you use Photoshop, in Photoshop, to switch back to the legacy undo mode in Photoshop, do the following steps. Step number 1. From the menu bar, choose edit, then keyboard shortcuts. And step number 2, in the keyboard shortcuts and menu dialog, select use legacy undo shortcuts and then click OK. And step number 3, restart Photoshop and Adobe Camera Raw. To switch back to the legacy undo mode in Adobe Camera Raw, and do the following. We have 4 steps again. Step number 1, from the menu bar in the Photoshop, choose edit, then choose preferences, then file handling. And step number 2, in the file capability section, click Camera Raw Preferences. And step number 3, in the Camera Raw Preferences dialog, select use legacy and undo shortcuts and then click OK. And number 4, restart Photoshop. You should restart the Photoshop. And how to revert? How to revert to the last saved version? How to revert to the last saved version on Photoshop? You have to choose the file, then revert. And do not, and be careful. Revert is added as a history state in the history panel and can be undone. And how to restore part of an image to its previously saved version? How to restore part of an image to its previously saved version? Do one of the following. Use the history brush tool and to paint with the selected state or snapshot on the history panel, and use the eraser tool with the erase to history option selected. Then select the area you want to restore and choose edit, then fill. For use, choose history and then click OK. Note and be careful. To restore the image note and be careful. To restore the image with a snapshot of the initial state of the document, choose history options from the panel menu and make sure that the automatically create first snapshot option is selected. How to cancel an operation? If you'd like to cancel an operation, what should you do? Hold down escape until the operation is in progress as stopped. And in Mac OS, you can also press Command plus period. And how to receive notification when an operation is completed? How to receive notification when an operation is completed? By the way, a progress bar indicates that an operation is being performed, and you can interrupt the operation or have the program notify you when it has finished the operation. And we have 3 steps here. Step number 1, do one of the following. Choose edit, then choose preferences, then select general if you use Windows, or Photoshop, then select preferences, then general if you use Mac OS. Step number 2, select beep. Select beep when done. Step number 3, click OK. And how to use it if you're using the history panel. Using the history panel. How to use the history panel? You can use the history panel to jump to any recent state of the image created during the current working session. And each time you apply a change to an image, the new state of that image is added to the panel, by the way. For example, if you select paint and rotate part of an image, each of those states is listed separately in the panel, and when you select one of the states, the image reverts to how it looked when that changes was first applied, and you can then work from that state. And you can also use the history panel to delete image state, and in Photoshop to create a document from a state or snapshot. And to display the history panel, choose window, then history, or click the history panel tab like this screenshot now. Is number A is meaning sets the source for the history brush, and B is meaning example of a snapshot, and C is meaning history state, and D is meaning history state slider. And keep the following in mind when using the history panel. Program wide changes, such as changes to panels and color setting and actions and preferences are not reflected, by the way, in the history panel because they are not changes to a particular image. Okay, so by default the history panel lists the previous 20 states, and you can change the number of remembered states by setting a preference under preferences and performance, and other states are automatically deleted to free more memory for Photoshop. And to keep a particular state throughout your work session, make a snapshot of the state and make a snapshot of an image. And once you close and reopen, and once you close and reopen the document, all states and snapshots from the last working session are cleared from the panel, by the way. And by default, snapshot of the initial state of the document is displayed at the top of the panel, and the states are added to the bottom of the list, and that is the oldest state is at the top of the list and the most recent one at the bottom, and each state is listed with the name of the tool or command used to change the image, by the way. And by default, when you select a state, the states below it are dimmed, and this way you can easily see which changes will be discarded if you continue working from the selected state. And by default, selecting a state and then changing the image eliminates all states that come after it. And if you select a state and then change the image, eliminating the state that came after, and you can use the undo command to undo the last change and restore the eliminated states. And by default, deleting a state deletes that state and those that came after it. And if you choose the allow non-linear history option, deleting a state deletes only that state. How to revert? How to revert to a previous image? If you would like to revert to a previous image, what should you do? Do any of the following. Number 1, click the name of the state. Number 2, choose step forward or step backward from the history panel menu or the edit menu to move to the next or previous state. And how to delete? How to delete one or more image state? You should do the following. Do one of the following. Number 1, click the name of the state and choose delete from the history panel menu to delete that change and those that came after it. Number 2, drag the state to the delete icon to delete that change and those that came after it, and choose clear history from the panel menu to delete the list of states from the history panel without changing the image. This option doesn't reduce, by the way, the amount of memory used by Photoshop. and hold down alt window or option Mac OS and choose clear history from the panel menu to purge the list of states without changing the image. And if you get a message that Photoshop is low on memory, purging states is useful, by the way, because the command deletes the states from the undo buffer and frees up memory, and you can't undo the clear history command, by the way. And then choose edit and purge and histories to purge the list of states for all open documents, and you can't undo this action. How to create or replace a document with an image state. How to create or replace a document with an image state. You should do the following. Drag a state or a snapshot onto the create a new document from current state button, and in the history panel, the history list for the newly created document contains only the duplicate state entry, and select a state or a snapshot and click the create a new document from current state button, and the history list for the newly created document contains only the duplicate state entry, and select a state or snapshot and choose a new document from the history panel menu. The history list for a newly created document contains only the duplicate state entry, by the way, and then drag a state onto an existing document. To save one or more snapshots or image states for use in a later editing session, create a new file for each state you save and save each in a separate file. And when you reopen your original file, plan to open the other saved file also, and you can drag each file's initial snapshot to the original image to access the snapshots again from the original image's history panel. How to set history options. Set history options. You can specify the maximum number of items to include in the history panel and set other options to customize the panel, and you have two steps. Step number 1. Choose history options from the history panel menu, then select an option, and automatically create first snapshot automatically creates a snapshot of an initial state of the image when the document is opened, and automatically create new snapshot when saving generates a snapshot every time you save, and allow non-linear history makes changes to a selected state without deleting the states that comes after normally. And when you select a state and change the image, all states, by the way, that come after the selected one are deleted, and in this way the history panel can display a list of the editing steps in the order that they were made, and by recording states in a non-linear way you can select a state and make a change to the image and delete just that state, and the change is appended at the end of the list. Show new snapshot dialog by default. Forces Photoshop to prompt you for snapshot names even when you use the button on the panel. And make layer visibility changes undouble. This option, by the way, is selected by default, and turning layer visibility on or off is recorded as a history step, and deselect this option to exclude layer visibility changes in history steps. How to set edit history log options. You may need to keep careful track of what's been done to a file in Photoshop, either for your own records, client records, by the way, or legal purposes. And the edit history log helps you keep a textual history of changes made to an image, and you can view the edit history log metadata using Adobe Bridge or the file info dialog box. And you can choose to export the text to an external log file, or you can store the information in the metadata of edited files, storing many editing operations as file metadata increases file size, such as files may take longer than usual to open and save. And if you need to prove that the log file hasn't been tampered with, keep the edit log in the files metadata and then use Adobe Acrobat to digitally sign the log file. And by default, history log data about each session is saved as metadata embedded in the image file, and you can specify where the history log data is saved and the level of detail contained in history log. In the history log, we have steps again. Step number 1: you should choose edit, then select preferences, then select general if you use Windows, or Photoshop, then select preferences, then select general if you use Mac OS. Step number 2: click the history log preference to toggle from on to off or vice versa. Step number 3: for the save log items to option, choose one of the following. Metadata saves the history log as metadata embedded in each file, and text file exports the history. Text file exports the history log to text file, and you are prompted to name the text file and choose a location in which to store it. And both stores metadata in the file and creates a text file. And be careful again. If you want to save the text file in a different location or save another text file, click the choose button, then specify where to save the text file and name the file if necessary, and click save. Number 4: from the edit log items menu, choose one of the following options. Session only keeps a record of each time you start or quit Photoshop and each time you open and close files, and each image's file name is included, by the way, and doesn't include any information about edits made and to the file. And concise. What about concise? Concise includes the text that appears in the history panel in addition to the session information. And what about detailed? Detailed is meaning includes the text that appears in the action panel. In the action panel. In addition to the concise information, if you need a complete history of all changes made to files, choose detailed. How to make a snapshot of an image. The snapshot, by the way, command lets you make a temporary copy or snapshot of any state of the image. The new snapshot is added to the list of snapshots at the top of the history panel, and selecting a snapshot lets you work from the version of the image. And the snapshots are similar to the states listed in the history panel, but they offer additional advantages, by the way. And we have many options now. Option number 1: you can name a snapshot to make it easy to identify. And option number 2: snapshots can be stored for an entire work session. And option number 3: you can compare effects easily. For example, you can take a snapshot before and after applying a filter, then select the first snapshot and try the same filter with different setting and switch between the snapshots to find the setting you like best. And option number 4: with the snapshots you can recover your work easily, and when you experiment with a complex technique or apply an action, take a snapshot first, and if you are not satisfied with the results, you can select the snapshot to undo all the steps here now. And be careful again. Be careful, please. Snapshots are not saved with the image, by the way. Closing an image deletes its snapshots, and also unless you select the allow non-linear history option, selecting a snapshot and changing the image deletes and all of the states currently listed in the history panel. And how to create snapshots. If you'd like to create any snapshots, number 1, we have many steps. Step number 1: select a state. Select you should select a state and do one of the following. To automatically create a snapshot, click the create a new snapshot button and on the history panel, or if automatically create a new snapshot when saving is selected in the history option, it choose new snapshot from the history panel menu. Then to set options when creating a snapshot, choose new snapshot from the history panel menu and or alt click or if you use Windows, or option click if you use Mac OS operating system, and the create new snapshot button. Step number 2. Enter the name of the snapshot in the name text box. Step number 3. Choose the snapshot contents from the from menu and full document. What about full document? Its meaning. Full document is meaning makes a snapshot of all layers in the image at that stage. Merged layers. Its meaning makes a snapshot that merges all layers in the image at that stage. Current layers. Its meaning makes a snapshot of only the currently selected layer at that state. So what about work with snapshots? If you'd like to work with a snapshot, what should you do? Do one of the following. To select a snapshot, click the name of the snapshot or drag the slider at the left of the snapshot up to or down to a different snapshot. And option number 2, to rename a snapshot, double click the snapshot and enter a name. And option number 3, to delete a snapshot, select the snapshot and either choose delete from the panel menu, then click the delete icon or drag the snapshot to delete icon. And paint with a state or snapshot of an image. How to paint with a state or snapshot of an image? By the way, the history brush tool lets you paint a copy of one image, state or snapshot into the current image windows, and this tool makes a copy or symbol of the image and then paints with it. For example, you might make a snapshot of a change you made with a painting tool or filter, and with the full document option selected when you create the snapshot. And after undoing the change to the image, you could use the history brush tool to apply the change selectively to areas of the image, and unless you select a merged snapshot. The history brush tool paints from a layer in the selected state to the same layer in another state, and the history brush tool copies from one state or snapshot to another, and but only at the same location. In Photoshop, you can also paint with the art history brush tool to create special effects. We have steps again also. Step number 1, select the history brush tool. Then step number 2, do one of the following in the option bar. Specify the opacity and blending mode and choose a brush and set brush options. Step number 3, in the history panel, click the left column of the state or snapshot to be used as the source for the history brush tool. Step number 4, drag to paint with the history brush tool.